Hello ladies and gents! Welcome back to another Friday with another Ace Tanker gameplay, this time around featuring a machine that's much praised in its line, but at the same time is a machine that's also usually gives a really nasty shock to people who drive it the first time around. Now I'm of course talking here about the Tier 8 French light tank, the AMX 1390, which in true French light tank style also has an autoloader at its disposal, even if a completely different one than the previous machines. And I'm not just talking about the caliber here. Before we get to the nitty-gritty, however, we will have a really quick look at the history of it because once again, it was interesting enough to mention it, but not deep enough to justify an entire article over on the Wartime blog about it. Now if you want to jump straight ahead to the gameplay, your usual timestamp awaits in the description below. And if you are looking for something to read, you are in luck as well, because on the Wartime blog, this week's article is all about none other than one of the most famous tank aces in history, the Black Baron himself, aka Michael Wittmann. Link of course to the article is in the description below as well. Right, so what's the real story behind the AMX 1390? Well, the tank that we really have to discuss here is the AMX 13 French light tank, a post-World War II design that was developed to be an air-portable vehicle to support paratroopers. The result was a 13-ton machine featuring a really unique two-part oscillating turret. One of the specialties of this solution was that the gun was actually fixed to the upper part of the turret, and when they were aiming up or down, the entire turret changed elevation instead of just the gun itself. The AMX-13 also used an auto-loading system that loaded the shells from two separate 6-round magazines, allowing the crew to engage multiple targets in very quick succession. The quite huge downside was that once these 12 rounds were depleted, they had to pull back from the front line completely, as the reload of the magazines could only be done from the outside of the vehicle. The AMX-13 series originally used a 75mm gun, which was later upgraded to a 90mm firing mostly heat, and some versions even used a 105mm gun on this machine. The tank itself was a highly successful export product as well, with 25 international operators, and did see plenty of action in a variety of battles including the Suez Crisis, the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur War, the Indo-Pakistani War and the Lebanese Civil War. Upgraded versions are in service even today with a variety of South American countries and Indonesia. So that was a very quick look at the history of the machine, but what about the in-game version? Well, before jumping in the gameplay and discussing its many strengths and weaknesses, just a really quick word about the armor. You don't have any. Really, don't expect to bounce anything in this thing, at least not before patch 9.17. But that's about enough with the dry stuff. Let's finally roll out and see how we can make the most of this very special machine. Alright, so here we are in our AMX 1390, this time around in a standard battle on the Fjords map. Now we got ourselves into a tier 10 match here, which this machine will most certainly see quite often. That's alright though, we can definitely handle those tier 10s, if we know how to use the machine. Now I have to say that the beginning of this battle, well, pretty much the first half of it will be all about spotting and positioning. And that's really a key feature for this machine, but we will talk about that a little bit later. Good news is though, this will allow us to discuss the many specialties of the AMX 1390, so let's get started. So what are the main reasons why this machine gives a nasty shock to so many people, even though the machine is pretty much regarded as the best of the French light tanks, with both the AMX 12T and the AMX 1375 before it being mostly unpopular with most of the community really. Well, for one, coming from those light tanks, you will be pretty shocked to learn that suddenly your DPM actually has gone down and not up. And that is because of the extreme jump in the clip reload time. Previously on the AMX 1375 you had a full reload of just over 15 seconds, which is not bad at all. It's actually lightning fast for a 6-round magazine. With the AMX 1390 though, if you are going for a full reload, you will have to wait for 40 seconds. That's right, that's almost a minute. Now you better get used to it, because this kind of reload time will be pretty much staying for the rest of the line as well, for both the new Tier 9 French medium tank, the Batchet 25T AP, and also the Tier 10 Batchet 25T. So better get used to it now, because that's going to stay. What's the same as well is the amount of time that you have to spend reloading each round within the magazine. From the previous 2 seconds, this time has now gone up to 2.7 seconds, which is a whole lot longer, so it takes actually a long time to unload all those rounds that you have at your disposal, 6 at most. And again, you better get used to it now, because you will have the same situation with the Tier 9 and the Tier 10 machines in the line as well. Now in the meantime, we just moved into a very cheeky position. We are careful enough not to get spotted though. I have a good camo crew, and as you can see, camouflage as well applied on the tank. So I can light up all these camping Tier 10s. And the guys behind me are very happy to take shots at them. So perfect, we are pinning those guys in place so they can't just roll over us. And we get some nice, juicy, tasty spotting damage. So, very long reload for each round, and also for the entire reload. But what do we get in return? Well, we have much higher burst potential, and that's because the average damage per shot goes up from 135 to 240 with the Top Gun. From the about, I think, 810 potential burst with the 1375, you now have a potential of 1440, which is a huge jump, and it will pretty much enable you to clip basically almost all of the Tier 8 heavies if you encounter them, and also relatively heavy Tier 9s and Tier 10s as well. Now of course, since you have to spend quite a long time reloading between each round, you have to choose your spots well in this tank. If you are just going straight ahead and not waiting for the right opportunities, this tank will get wrecked. And quite often I see AMX 1390 players fire a couple of shots and then they feel that they are really committed now to fire the rest of it as well. It's not necessarily the right call. It's much better to go back in a safe position, go for a reload, and then wait for an opportunity when you can really unload without getting punished for it. Because saving your health for the later stages of the match, to be able to maybe take a shot from a higher tier machine, but in return to pump it full with your shots, is really crucial. Now finally we get to see some action as well, and we are teaming up with the big brother, the big Batchet. We have managed to sneak in the kill. Not intentional kill steal though, but we will not wait for him. Now we still have 4 rounds left to give to the enemy team, which pretty much crumbled at this stage, but there was really no opportunity for us to move in. Plus we were farming some really juicy assistant damage. So now is the time to get those damage numbers going. There we go, we have the S of the E5. Perfect. Now, another thing that's really annoying about the 1390 is the amount of time it has to spend aiming. If you did see there, that's 2.9 second aim time at base, which is a hell of a long time. And I have to say, that's actually the worst aim time in the entire line. And it also has the worst accuracy with 0.36 meters and the worst dispersion values. So yeah, the gun performance really leaves a lot desiring in this tank. In the meantime, I did go for a reload, so I will just spot this Tier 10 artillery. Even though he fired, we can't really do anything about it. I can't really go and ram him in this slightly armored vehicle. We can get this spot though. And we can even get the killing blow. Sweet. So really, the way you have to make this gun work is to either get yourself in a position where you have the luxury to stay still and aim. Or look for situations where you can really jump on the enemy and get him in close quarters, and that's really where this machine is so powerful. In the later stages of the battle you can just go and jump on these tier 9s and tier 10s, non-turreted tank destroyers, E75s, it doesn't matter, you just stick yourself on the backside of them and just unload the whole world of punishment on them. And that's where this machine is really beautiful. So really, it's all about looking for those situations, playing carefully, and unloading a world of pain onto the enemy when the time is right. So, this was the my ace tanker in the AMX 1390. Perhaps not as flashy as you would have hoped, but if you throw these fragile autoloaders into the thick of it too much, they tend to get wrecked in pretty short time. Now that doesn't mean, of course, that we were useless. 5600 assisted and 1300 direct damage in a tier 10 match stand proof to that. Now looking at the team results, we actually managed to finish on top by experience earned with close to 1300 base XP. Perhaps more importantly though, just have a look at the light tanks. On our side, they did pretty well overall, while on the other side, pretty much all of them died without achieving much. Just shows you the importance and the effectiveness of those tier 8 light tanks even in a tier 10 match. And finally we fired overall 6 shots, scoring 6 hits and 6 penetrations. Not bad gun performance this time around, but as discussed during the video, you definitely have to be clear with what you can and with what you can't expect from your gun, or you are definitely going to have a bad time. Right, this was my take on the AMX 1390, the tier 8 French light tank. I hope this video did help some of you enjoy playing it even more, or at least you found the video entertaining, and if you did, thanks a lot for considering giving this a like or sharing it. Next up we will have some cool uncommentated gameplay over the weekend featuring a double dose of freedom with the brand new T26E5 Patriots on Saturday, and then we will have a look at a 7-kill 4000 damage run in the trusty old T54 first prototype on Sunday. As for me, however, let me already wish you an excellent weekend, and I already look forward to seeing you again in one of the next videos.